Hi, I'm Don, and this is the Hobbyist Geek. Welcome back, y'all. Today's the day. We're going to be finishing off Soundwave with part 3. We're going to take care of his torso, his head. We're going to get all of this wonderful stuff assembled. Last time we did his arms. We got his accessories. We got some magnets in there. We got his legs done in part 1. We are ready to go. I can't wait. So how about enough talking from me? And let's just get into the build. And here he is in all of his assembled glory. And oh my Lord, this guy is awesome. I absolutely love the way this thing turned out. I think it's freaking awesome. There's so much to cover. And frankly, I wasn't sure where to even begin the closing review of this build because there is so incredibly much to go over. I think I'll start with, obviously the overall look here. He is about the same size as the Masterpiece, which we'll bring out for the size comparison so you can see for yourself. The detail on the torso bit here, which I'll pull in for some closer looks a little bit later, is absolutely amazing. The personalization options for your display, outstanding. There's so many aspects of this build that are absolutely worthwhile just to have this guy in your collection. For the torso bit itself, as far as the construction, about 5.5 hours. So all told for the whole thing, about 17.5 hours of straight build time. So you're looking at 24, 25 hours when you count, excuse me, cutting out all the parts, getting everything organized, yada, yada, yada. There are a couple of problem areas when it comes to the torso. Definitely the hardest part of the build. And some areas that, frankly, you might want to skip. And I'll get into those in detail whenever we show off the detail in close up. But here he is, just simply looking spectacular. Now, to bring him in and show off some of this detail, I'm actually going to go ahead and take off the accessories, and then we'll show you the display options as well in just a little bit. All right, coming back to a top-down view for the detail portion of this review. We'll start down here at the crotch area, and as you can see, we have the usual boombox controls in their proper positions. It actually does say play right there, and you've got the fast forward and rewind as well as the record and stop buttons. You've got this excellent abdomen detail along with the red highlights, which is just incredible. This little laser etch detail here, it's not great, it's not mesh, it's just laser etching, but still looking good. On the side here, again, more laser edge detail, little pop out detail, nice little separation with this silver bit here. Looks like it clamps together as part of a transformation, which is, again, incredible. A little bit of detail right in there, along with this battery looking thing right here, which was pretty cool. Now, you see a lot of detail inside this little graded area here. This is one of those areas that you might want to skip or do in a different order. The piece that goes on the inside, they make you do the shaping of the torso and then close up the back, and then they want you to put that piece inside, lining up with that metal grate. And that was insanely difficult to get my fat fingers in there and get everything lined up. It was just an absolute pain, and you got to do it on both sides. And in the end, you can actually see it better on camera than you can in real life. And I mean, you're really not going to see much unless you're shining a light in. And when he's standing on his display, nobody's going to even see this detail. So you might want to skip it altogether. Maybe try to do it a little earlier if you can. Something. Or you can go through the pain like I did, so you get that little bit of detail in there. But there is, some painted detail inside on a separate piece. You got a lot of gears painted on here, nothing actually built. A little pop-out detail, silver, some laser etching. On the back side here, these little bits here and here, there's actually 11 pieces in each one of these panels. They weren't difficult, just a little tedious and a lot of small pieces. So, you know, but I mean, look at the end result. I mean, that detail is just amazing. You got this kind of a venting detail going on here. This looks like a switch, but I don't remember there actually being a switch back there or what that would have been for in boombox mode, but, you know, looks cool. It does look cool. There's some grading on the bottom, little mesh here on the top, and if you look just right, you can actually see all the way through. But again, it's not really going to show up unless you're looking very, very closely. You may have noticed this can move, and we'll get back to that when we get into the display options. The cannon itself does not rotate, so there's no option for storing it straight up and down on his back. However, where this meets the cannon, those pins in there can actually go either way. So if you wanted to put the cannon stored along his back, you could do it, but be warned, you're not going to be able to flip it later. So, you know, I like the standard. I like it up like this. You do have a little pop-out detail there. You've got these little elements here to add some texture and detail. Some laser etching up in here, along with the red highlights. So all in all, quite nice. You do have these little dials right here. Not particularly sure what they would have been for, but it is what it is. You got the copyright here. Not much detail on the shoulders. Both shoulders are identical. Not a whole lot of detail there. Little red on the top of the button. You know, all in all, pretty good. This side is identical to the other side, but you can't really see it with the arm being down the way that it is. On the back of the crotch, on the butt here, there's really nothing to it. It's just flat with some painted and laser etched detail. So not a whole lot there to look at on the butt. There is a 3D element that's up in here that frankly you're never going to see because it's hidden by his backpack, which is kind of odd, but it is what it is. Coming up to the chest, you've got all of this excellent detail in here. There's no glass, no plastic, no nothing in here. It's just hollow to go straight through. And you get the Decepticon logo along with that wonderful little yellow highlight, which actually does match the Masterpiece model, but the Masterpiece one is on the plastic. So when you put a cassette in there, you still see all that detail. That is not the case for the Moo model. This does open, so it can be displayed in an open position, but the inside of this is not painted, so it's just bright silver there. I don't particularly like that look in the open position. These little hinges here are useful enough, but they do kind of get out of joint, so you got to be careful about opening and closing it, but they function as is. There's some magnets up here to hold it up top, and it does exactly what it should do. One more thing on the back though, this area right here is actually for storing his weapon, his rifle. And the way it's slotted, it can actually be stored in an upright or a downward position, and we'll show that off when we get to the display options. Coming up to the head sculpt, the head is a little boxy. I'm not particularly fond with how boxy the head is. The faceplate itself seems a little thin when viewed from the side. The front, I mean, it looks great. When you're looking at it dead on, it looks great. But when you look from the side, it just looks like a big square. Detail-wise, it does have the Moo logo here on the back of the head, which, you know, again, I'm not a fan of, but they got to advertise some way, right? It wasn't actually very difficult to put together, so nothing to really warn you about on that, but it is what it is, and it does look great. All right, let's show you what kind of personalization options you can get. Okay, to personalize this thing, you actually have effectively 5 separate accessories. You have your cassette of buzzsaw here. Obviously this does not transform or anything, but it does look exactly like the Masterpiece version of the cassette. You have his sonic weapon here, and his rifle, and his right fist. Now, for the fist and the sonic weapon, those are actually interchangeable. So on his wrist here, you can see there's a whole series of slots. There's also a magnet in there. Those slots can be used to put in either of the accessories, and the fist will go in there as well. And on the butt, there's a magnet that will hold either one of them in place. Interestingly enough, on the Masterpiece one, this is where the sonic weapon stores just fine. If you want to put his fist there, go ahead. I'm not going to get into the connotations of putting his fist on his ass, but you know, to each their own. Let me go ahead and get his fist in place on his wrist. There you go. Just like that. Next up, you've got the rifle. Now the rifle can store on his back, and it can go in this downward position, just like this, and it stores just fine, and that is actually where his rifle will store on the Masterpiece version. They really copied a lot from that model. It can get a little difficult to release sometimes. There it goes. But it is slotted, so if you so desire, it can store in an upright position as well. I don't actually store it in the upright position, so I've never done it, but I can tell that the slots are there for it to work. And it's just going to keep falling until I can get it into that slot. So, well, technically it'll work, but with the magnet that's in there dragging everything around, it's a little harder to get it slotted in than it is to put it in the downward position. But it can work. I know, I've done it once before successfully. There it goes. So you can store it whichever way you want, or you can slot it into his hands, and you can notice on the tab here there's actually a little bit of a hook on it. So when it slots into his hand, you can slide it down a little bit to help lock it in place. Just like that. And now you've got his cannon in his hand. Next up, you've got the cannon on his shoulder. Now it can be in the upright position like this, or all the way down on his shoulder. The hinge that you build really doesn't have any friction to it. So they added a magnet to add a little bit of friction, which actually works for certain positions. But once you get too high, it just falls. So you got about there down to his shoulder before it really falls. Next up, the cassette. Now, I personally don't like the look of him with the cassette in, but I also don't like having loose pieces either. So I've decided I'm going to go ahead and display him with the cassette in, and you can push this out. You got to slot this in just right, because if you don't, it just doesn't close properly. But getting it slotted just right can be a bit of a pain. So it's one of those things where you may want to set it and leave it if you can. Otherwise, it's just going to be all funky and it's not going to be right. There you go. And there he is with buzzsaw. And you can see the magnet didn't hold this, so jerking him around a little bit is going to cause the cannon to go all over the place. But there you go. So you have an array of options here for customizing and personalizing how you want to display this piece. Let's go ahead and get into the size comparisons. And here he is next to Masterpiece Soundwave, and you can very clearly tell that the Moo model design was based very heavily on the Masterpiece design, both from a simple visual appearance to, you know, some of the details and where all of the storage is for his various accessories. But I think it comes out really nice. I mean, even the proportions on the limbs match the Masterpiece model. And here is the Moo model version of Soundwave. And there's not a whole lot to compare here, but the Moo model actually does have one up on him this time, and that is the inclusion of Laserbeak in robot mode sitting on his arm. But when placed together, you can see there's really not a whole lot to compare here. The Moo model is far, far superior. And for a final comparison here, we have him next to the Moo model Megatron and the Moo model Wheeljack. And as you can see, he scales just right. He's just a bit smaller than Megatron, like he should be, and yet still quite a bit taller than Wheeljack, again, like he should be. Anyway, this wraps it up for our Moo model Soundwave build. I really hope you liked the video. If you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.